Something is breathing under the Aegean Sea, and for the first time in human history, we have the tools to actually watch it happen in real time.
Is it a little hole? Is it a big hole? What kind of feature is it down there? There's a whole lot of questions you get when you find this one spectacular reading.
Scientists used cutting-edge tech to peek inside the Earth, and what they found was a magma chamber filling up at a rate of 141 million cubic feet every year. It is not that simple, though, because this growth is happening just a few miles from an island that hosts millions of people. The urgent question is not if it will blow, but how much time is left before the pressure becomes too much for the crust to handle. Aegean monster rises right beneath the blue waters of the Mediterranean Sea, specifically about 4.3 miles from one of the most visited islands in the world. There is something that most people have no idea about. A massive magma chamber is hidden at the bottom of the sea, and it has been growing silently for nearly 400 years. The most impressive part is that scientists only discovered the true scale of this recently. We are talking about the Columbo volcano, a submarine volcano located near the Greek island of Santorini. What is happening beneath it has been worrying researchers all over the world. When people think about volcanoes, the first image that comes to mind is a mountain with lava flowing down. But beneath the oceans, there are far more volcanoes than on the surface. The problem is that most of them are simply invisible to the naked eye. Columbo is one of those. It sits about 1,600 feet below the sea surface along the Hellenic volcanic arc. This is the same region where one of the largest eruptions in human history took place. The eruption of Thera around 1,600 years before the Common Era practically wiped out the Minoan civilization. The last time Columbo erupted was in 1650. Back then, glowing flows crossed the sea surface and reached the shores of Santorini. Toxic gases spread across the island, and 70 people lost their lives. For that era, with a much smaller population, it was a devastating event. Since 1650, nearly 400 years have passed. During all that time, Columbo stayed silent. But silence when it comes to volcanoes does not mean inactivity. It often means that something is building up below out of our sight. That is exactly what scientists confirmed with the discovery that surprised even the most experienced people in the field. This volcano is part of a volcanic field with at least 25 submarine cones all aligned to the northeast of Santorini. It is a geologically complex region where the African plate dives beneath the Aegean plate, creating perfect conditions for large-scale magma accumulation. The question scientists had been trying to answer for years was simple. How much magma is down there? The answer they found exceeded all expectations. A study published in late 2022 brought a revelation that changed the risk assessment for this entire region. Using a technology called full waveform inversion, which works like a medical ultrasound for the Earth, researchers saw what no traditional method had ever detected. But the real mystery starts when you look at how fast that liquid rock is actually moving. The technique researchers used is pretty wild. They fire sound waves from a research vessel, and those waves travel through the ocean floor. When they pass through solid rock, they travel fast. But when they encounter magma or molten material, the speed drops dramatically. Using that difference in speed, scientists can build a detailed image of what lies beneath the volcano. It is like an X-ray of the interior of the Earth. What the image revealed was a magma chamber that nobody knew existed. It extends from about 1.25 miles to 2.5 miles deep below sea level, with a width of roughly 2,000 feet. The total volume of accumulated magma is 0.33 cubic miles. That sounds a bit abstract, right? So think of it this way. That would be enough to fill more than 500,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools with molten rock at temperatures exceeding 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. What really stands out is the rate of growth. According to the study, this chamber has been growing at an average of 141 million cubic feet every year since the last eruption in 1650. 141 million cubic feet every single year without stopping. Geophysicists at Imperial College London explained that if this growth rate continues, at some point within the next 150 years, Columbo could reach a critical mass of magma. That volume is exactly what was expelled during the 1650 eruption. In other words, the volcano is recharging itself for something comparable to what happened nearly 400 years ago. The characteristics of this system indicate a highly explosive potential. This would be comparable in style to the Hunga Tonga eruption of 2022. If you remember, that eruption in the Pacific generated giant waves and a column of ash that reached the edge of space. Now imagine something with that kind of potential, just about 4 miles from an island with 20,000 residents and over 3 million tourists per year. It is a recipe for a disaster that nobody is talking about enough. The danger shifted from a possibility to a reality when the ground started shaking in 2025. Deep magma paths. In January of 2025, something happened that brought all of this into sharp focus. On January 27th, an unexpectedly intense earthquake swarm began to be recorded about 6 miles northeast of Santorini, right in the region of the Columbo volcano. These were not just a few small tremors. Over the course of approximately 30 days, more than 30,000 earthquakes were recorded between the islands of Santorini and Amorgos. The University of Athens reported over 15,000 quakes in just 15 days. This was something never documented in that region with such intensity. The largest tremor reached a magnitude of 5.2. The Greek government actually declared a state of emergency on Santorini between early February and March of 2025. Schools were shut down. Residents were told to drain their swimming pools because the movement of water from the tremors could actually destabilize the buildings. Around 11,000 people left the island voluntarily. Then came the scientific response. In late 2025, a study published in the journal Nature provided the explanation. What the researchers discovered was even more surprising than the crisis itself. Santorini and Columbo, two volcanoes that were believed to be separate systems, are actually connected by a shared deep magmatic system. The data showed that the gradual inflation of the Santorini caldera, which began in mid-2024, happened right before magma filled a path from a reservoir beneath Columbo. Think about the scale of that. Two extremely dangerous volcanoes just a few miles apart, fed by the same deep reservoir. The research team analyzed more than 25,000 earthquakes using artificial intelligence and concluded that sheets of magma sliced through the crust at depths greater than 6 miles. The volume of magma involved in this movement would be enough to fill 200,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. The magma did not reach the surface this time, but scientists warned that this interaction between the two volcanoes significantly increases the risk of future activity. There is a detail that almost went unnoticed during the crisis. The seafloor above Columbo sank by as much as 13 inches, while the surface of Santorini rose by more than 4 inches. These movements indicate that magma was moving between the two systems in real time. It is as if the two volcanoes were breathing together, exchanging pressure through the deep crust. Even with these two acting up, another hidden monster is waiting further out in the sea. If Columbo is already concerning, there is another volcano in the Mediterranean that deserves a lot of attention And honestly, it might be even more terrifying. Marsili sits in the Tyrrhenian Sea about 109 miles south of Naples, Italy, and it is probably the most underestimated volcano on the entire European continent. This giant is about 43 miles long and 19 miles wide, which makes it larger than Mount Etna, yet it remains hidden beneath the waves. It rises nearly 10,000 feet from the seafloor, with its peak just about 1,500 feet below the surface. Almost nobody has heard of it, but it is a massive structure that could change the map of Europe in a single afternoon. The Italian National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology has warned that Marsili has fragile walls made of unstable rocks, and these walls are fed by a shallow, boiling magma chamber that never seems to rest. But here is where things get truly wild. Some independent researchers have started whispered conversations about what is really happening deep inside that mountain of fire. There is a theory floating around that Marsili isn't just a volcano, but a sort of geological pressure valve for the entire continent. The crazy part is the idea that it might be connected through a series of deep crustal superhighways to other volcanic systems across the globe. Some suggest that when we see a massive eruption in the Pacific or the Atlantic, Marsili acts like a mirror, absorbing the seismic shock waves and storing that energy for a later date. If that is true, we aren't just looking at a local threat, but a global battery of tectonic fury that has been charging for thousands of years. There are even more extreme rumors suggesting that the structural instability of Marsili isn't just a natural accident. Some theorists wonder if the sheer weight of the Mediterranean Sea pressing down on those fragile walls is actually keeping a lid on something much larger than a standard magma chamber. They speculate that beneath Marsili lies a superplume, a massive column of molten rock rising directly from the Earth's core. If that plume ever breaks through those crumbling walls, it wouldn't just be an eruption, it would be a planetary-scale event. We are talking about the kind of geological force that could shift the Earth's axis or trigger a volcanic winter that lasts for decades. And get this, because the volcano is underwater, the interaction between that superheated core material and the cold seawater would create a steam explosion so powerful it could be heard across the entire hemisphere. It is not that simple, though, because the immediate danger is much more physical. Simulations by the University of Bologna showed that if a part of the volcano wall collapsed, it would create massive waves that move faster than a jet plane. These waves would reach the nearby islands in approximately 10 minutes and hit the coasts of Calabria and Sicily in 20 minutes. In the most extreme scenario, waves up to 66 feet high could hit the coast, wiping out everything in their path. The Mediterranean, unlike the Pacific, does not have a super robust warning system for these kinds of events. The distances are very short, and the reaction time is practically zero. Basically, if the side of Marsili slides, millions of people will have just enough time to realize something is wrong before the water arrives. Some go as far as to say that the recent activity we have seen around Santorini and Columbo is actually Marsili calling out to its neighbors. The theory is that a massive magmatic pulse is moving through the Mediterranean basin, a wave of liquid fire that is waking up every dormant giant in the region. If this pulse reaches Marsili, it could be the final straw for those unstable walls. Imagine a domino effect where one submarine collapse triggers another, leading to a chain reaction of tsunamis and eruptions that would leave the cradle of civilization in total ruins. It sounds like a movie script, but when you look at how fast these systems are changing, it starts to feel a lot more like a countdown. Scientists are not just standing by, of course. In late 2025, research vessels departed to Santorini and the surrounding waters with the goal of testing new submarine monitoring systems. The goal is to catch these signals before they turn into disasters. Every new piece of data makes risk assessment more precise, and every sensor helps us stay one step ahead of the molten rock. The Mediterranean is hands down one of the most significant geological hotspots of our generation, and we are only just beginning to understand the true scale of the power hidden beneath its waves. Researchers are going even deeper into these volcanoes to make sure we are not caught off guard when the Earth finally decides to move again, because the alternative is simply too dark to consider. While the data on the magma chambers is solid, you should know that these whispers of superplumes and planetary scale connections are currently drifting in the wind, as there is absolutely no supporting evidence for these wilder claims. Will these hidden giants stay quiet long enough for us to truly prepare for the next big explosion? This is a serious situation, so like and subscribe for more updates, and stay safe out there.